The speech I chose to do was Franklin Delano Roosevelt's Pearl Harbor speech. A date which will live in infamy, he called it. Introduction. On December 7th, 1941, Japan bombed the naval base Pearl Harbor. He wrote this speech to Congress so that they would declare war on Japan and America. He needed America to come together and unite as one nation. The rhetorical steps he uses were logos, repetition, and pathos. Logos is using logic. Repetition is repeating something enough to give a realization to the reader. And pathos is using emotions to appeal to the listeners. The speaker. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the president at the time, and he was very well liked and very well trusted. Roosevelt was nearing the end of his fourth and final term as president. This clearly shows that he was well loved and well trusted by the people of the United States. They would have never had elected him into 4 straight elections if they didn't think he was capable and a trustworthy leader. Occasion. This speech was given the day after Pearl Harbor, so December 8th, 1941. Pearl Harbor was when Japan bombed the military base in the U.S. The audience. This was directed to the Vice President, the Speaker of the House, members of the Senate, and the House of Representatives, and also the nation. He needed Congress to declare war and needed Americans to trust each other and the military. I'm just going to show a little bit of his speech to give you an idea of the tone that he uses while he delivers this speech.
Senators and representatives, I have the distinguished honor of presenting the President of the United States.
Vice President, Mr. Speaker, members of the Senate, of the House of Representatives, yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation, and at solicitation of Japan, still in conversation with its government and its emperor, looking toward the maintenance of peace in the Pacific. Indeed, 1 hour after Japanese air squadrons had commenced bombing in the American island of Oahu, the Japanese ambassador to the United States and his colleague delivered to our Secretary of State a formal reply to a recent American message. And while this reply stated that it seemed useless to continue the existing diplomatic negotiations, it contained no threat or hint of war or of armed attack. it will be recorded that the distance of Hawaii from Japan makes it obvious that the attack was deliberately planned many days or even weeks ago. During the intervening time, the Japanese government has deliberately sought to deceive the United States by false statements and expressions of hope for continued peace. The attack.
So that gives you an idea of how serious he was and how much he cared about his nation. The purpose of the speech was obviously for Congress to get them to declare war, and America to trust our country and our military, but also for them to come together because they needed to come together or else we would never have won. The subject. As I've said, the subject was to get war with Japan and for America to realize that we had military strength to get through this. And this is a picture of what happened at Pearl Harbor. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. This quote is an example of logos. Logos is using logic to get a point across. This uses logic because it's exactly what happened. He states an exact date, an exact description, so there's no extra or there's no less. Roosevelt believes the logical thing to do would be to fight back against Japan. By using logos, that causes his listeners to agree with his plan. Last night, Japanese forces attack Hong Kong. Last night, Japanese forces attack Guam. Last night, Japanese forces attacked the Philippine Islands. Last night, the Japanese attacked Wake Island. And this morning, the Japanese attacked Midway Island. This quote is an example of using repetition. By using repetition, he gives the listeners a realization. By stating those 7 attacks in 24-hour period, this is too much to be pure coincidence. By stating those acts of damage, it shows the amount of damage in reality. How so much was damaged in just a 24-hour time period. Our people, our territory, and our interests. That quote was an example of pathos. Pathos is using emotions to appeal to senses. That quote created a feeling of unity and togetherness. It also gave up the impression that they needed trust and support. By using the word "are," it really brings them together because they are one nation. Roosevelt used pathos to give the listeners a feeling, which America needed to succeed against Japan. The effect that this speech gave was he later got Congress's approval, and that started World War II. They needed World War II because it was so much of a coincidence that Japan deliberately attacked them, and it was no mistake. And this is a picture, again, of what happened at Pearl Harbor. the audience's response. America later fully trusted and supported the war, and they not only did that, they came together as a nation because they trusted FDR so much. Why was this speech so famous? This was the speech that started World War II. This was the speech that made amends with the world. This is the speech that truly brought together America. Thesis. On December 7th, 1941, Japan bombed the naval base Pearl Harbor. Conclusion. Without this speech or the strength of the American army, the world would never be the same. FDR had so much faith in America, and America saw that faith. And so they put it together. And this is my works cited page. Thank you for listening, and I hope this really gave an insight to how America can react in times of stress.